Across the world, something unprecedented is happening. Countries that once welcomed immigrants are now shutting doors, tightening borders, and forcing people out fast. From Europe to the Middle East to Asia, governments are rewriting immigration laws almost overnight. Millions of people are being told they no longer belong, not because of crime, but because economies are under pressure, jobs are disappearing, and public anger is rising. This isn't one country. This isn't one region. This is a global reset. And in 2026, at least 10 countries are leading the charge, with consequences far more shocking than anyone expected. The global immigration conversation has changed, not slowly, not quietly, but decisively. By 2026, immigration is no longer framed around opportunity or humanitarian responsibility. It is increasingly framed around pressure. Pressure on housing, pressure on wages, pressure on public services, and pressure on political stability. Across continents, governments are responding the same way. Tighter rules, faster deportations, and fewer pathways to stay. This is not a coincidence. It's a pattern. We begin at number 10. Number 10, Sweden. For decades, Sweden was seen as one of the most welcoming countries in the world. Generous asylum policies, strong social welfare, open doors. That image has now shifted dramatically. By 2026, Sweden has implemented some of the strictest immigration reforms in its modern history. Temporary residency permits are being reviewed, family reunification rules have tightened, and deportations have increased, particularly for migrants who fail to meet employment or language requirements. The reason is pressure. Sweden's housing system has struggled to keep up. Public services are strained. Crime, whether fairly attributed or not, has become politically linked to immigration, and public patience has worn thin. What's notable is the tone change. This is no longer framed as integration needs improvement. It's framed as the system took in more than it could handle. Sweden is not just tightening borders. It's redefining who gets to stay. Number 9, United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has moved from debate to enforcement. By 2026, immigration policy in the UK is no longer about numbers alone. It's about control. Visa overstays, asylum backlogs, and undocumented workers have become central political issues. The government has expanded detention capacity, accelerated removals, and restricted access to work permits. New policies tie residency more tightly to income thresholds and job shortages, effectively filtering who qualifies to remain. Economic anxiety plays a major role. High housing costs, stagnant wages, and overburdened healthcare systems have fueled public frustration. Immigration, fairly or not, has become the focal point for that anger. What makes the UK's shift significant is its speed. Policies that once took years to debate are now implemented within months. Legal challenges remain, but enforcement has clearly intensified. The message is blunt. If you don't fit the economic need, you don't stay. Number 8, Italy. Italy has long been a frontline state for migration into Europe. Geography made that unavoidable. Politics has now made it uncompromising. By 2026, Italy has adopted aggressive measures to reduce migrant arrivals and increase removals. Naval patrols have expanded. Asylum approvals have dropped. Temporary protection statuses are being reassessed. The justification is economic fatigue. Italy's economy has struggled for years. Youth unemployment remains high. Public debt is massive. And many Italians believe the country simply cannot absorb more people without destabilizing itself. What's changed is public tolerance. Immigration is no longer discussed as a shared European responsibility. It's framed as a national burden, one Italy is no longer willing to carry alone. As a result, deportations have increased, and pathways to permanent residency have narrowed sharply. Italy is drawing a line, not just at its borders, but within its system. Number 7. Canada. Canada's inclusion on this list surprises many people. For years, Canada positioned itself as the counterexample, open, welcoming, and pro-immigration. And while legal immigration remains high, 2026 marks a clear shift when it comes to who stays and who goes. Temporary residents, international students, and asylum seekers now face tighter limits. Work permit extensions are harder to obtain. Refugee claims are processed more aggressively. Deportations of undocumented migrants have increased quietly but steadily. The driving force is capacity. Housing shortages have reached critical levels. Rent prices have surged. Healthcare systems are overwhelmed. Public frustration has grown. And political language has changed. Canada is not closing its doors, it's narrowing them. The country is prioritizing immigrants who immediately fill labor shortages while pushing out those who fall outside economic criteria. It's a recalibration. But for many, migrants, it feels like rejection. At this point, the pattern is already clear. These are not authoritarian states. These are democracies. Countries once known for openness are now enforcing limits with urgency. Not because migration suddenly increased, but because tolerance decreased. And this is just the beginning. The countries ahead on this list are going even further, implementing policies that directly target undocumented populations, revoke protections, and accelerate removals at a scale that reshapes entire communities. As we move into the next part of this countdown, the measures become harsher, the rhetoric sharper, and the consequences far more immediate. Because by the time we reach the top of this list, immigration is no longer being managed. It's being reversed. By the time we reach the middle of this list, immigration policy stops being defensive and starts becoming deliberate. The countries ahead are no longer just reacting to pressure. They are actively restructuring their systems to reduce immigrant populations faster, harder, and with fewer exceptions. This is where immigration enforcement turns into immigration reversal. Let's continue. Number 6. Germany. Germany has long been Europe's economic engine. And for years, it relied heavily on immigrant labor to keep that engine running. That reality hasn't changed. The politics around it have. By 2026, Germany has dramatically tightened its immigration and asylum policies. Temporary protection statuses are being reviewed. Asylum rejections have increased. Deportations, once slow and legally complex, are now being accelerated. The shift is driven by exhaustion. Housing shortages are severe. Local governments are overwhelmed. Integration programs are stretched thin. And public sentiment has hardened after years of sustained migration. What makes Germany's move significant is its scale. As the largest economy in Europe, Germany's policies set the tone for the entire region. When Germany tightens enforcement, smaller countries follow. The language has also changed. Immigration is no longer framed as a moral responsibility. It's framed as a capacity problem. One Germany claims it has reached the limit of. The message is clear. Protection is no longer permanent. Number 5, France. France's approach to immigration in 2026 is blunt, forceful, and unapologetic. New legislation has expanded police powers, reduced appeal timelines, and increased deportations, particularly for undocumented migrants and rejected asylum seekers. The justification is security and cohesion. Public protests, social unrest, and economic stagnation have pushed immigration to the center of political debate. And in that debate, immigrants have become a symbol, fairly or not, of a system under strain. France has tightened residency requirements, limited access to benefits, and increased workplace inspections targeting undocumented labor. What's different now is enforcement consistency. In the past, policies existed on paper, but were unevenly applied. In 2026, enforcement is systematic. Bureaucratic delays are being removed. Legal protections are narrowed. France is sending a message not just to migrants, but to voters. The state is taking control again. For undocumented immigrants, this has created a climate of fear. Sudden checks, faster removals, and shrinking legal options. Number 4, Australia. Australia's immigration stance in 2026 is firm, controlled, and increasingly exclusionary. For years, Australia balanced strict border controls with selective immigration. Now that balance has shifted further toward exclusion. Temporary visas are being shortened. Pathways to permanent residency have narrowed. Undocumented migrants face faster detention and removal. The focus is economic utility. Australia is prioritizing migrants who immediately fill high-skill shortages, while aggressively removing those who don't meet strict criteria. Asylum claims are processed more quickly and rejected more often. Housing pressure is a major factor. Rising rents, limited supply, and public frustration have pushed immigration into the spotlight. Political leaders now openly argue that population growth must slow, and immigration is the fastest lever to pull. Australia's system is efficient by design. That efficiency now works against migrants. Detention is swift. Appeals are limited. And enforcement is quiet but relentless. For many immigrants who once saw Australia as a long-term destination, 2026 feels like a turning point. By this stage of the countdown, the global shift is unmistakable. These are not isolated cases. They are coordinated responses to the same pressures: housing shortages, economic anxiety, public fatigue, political survival. Countries that once competed to attract immigrants are now competing to control numbers and reduce them. And the most aggressive examples are still ahead, because the remaining countries on this list are taking even stronger actions: mass deportations, revoked protections, and policies that reshape entire migrant communities almost overnight. As we move into the final part of this countdown, the tone hardens further, the stakes rise higher, and the consequences become impossible to ignore. By the time we reach number 1, immigration is no longer being debated. It is being decisively shut down. When you're ready, just say, by the time we reach the final stretch of this countdown, immigration policy is no longer about adjustment. It's about force. The remaining countries on this list are not just tightening rules. They are actively removing people, revoking protections, and reshaping their populations with speed and authority. This is where the global reset becomes unmistakable. Number 3, Spain has become one of Europe's most aggressive immigration enforcers in 2026, quietly but decisively. For years, Spain served as a key entry point into Europe, especially from North Africa. But mounting pressure on housing, employment, and public services has shifted the government's approach. Asylum approvals have dropped sharply, deportations have increased, temporary protection statuses are being reassessed, especially for migrants who fail to secure stable employment. What changed is not just policy, it's urgency. Local governments have warned that they cannot absorb more migrants without destabilizing housing markets and social services. Public frustration has grown, particularly in urban areas where rent and unemployment are already high. Spain has expanded border controls, increased maritime patrols, and fast-tracked removals for undocumented migrants. The tone has hardened. Immigration is no longer framed as humanitarian necessity, it's framed as economic containment. For many migrants who once viewed Spain as a gateway to Europe, 2026 marks the moment that gateway began closing. Number 2, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's immigration crackdown is among the most aggressive in the world and the least debated. Unlike Western democracies, Saudi Arabia does not soften its approach with public justification. Enforcement is swift, direct, and unapologetic. By 2026, Saudi Arabia has intensified mass deportation campaigns targeting undocumented workers across construction, domestic labor, retail, and service sectors. Millions of foreign workers have been removed over the past few years, and the pace has accelerated. The motivation is national transformation. As the country pushes forward with economic restructuring and national employment goals, undocumented migrants are seen as obstacles to workforce localization. Jobs are being reserved for citizens. Compliance is non-negotiable. Raids are frequent. Documentation checks are routine. Deportations happen rapidly, often with little notice. There is no appeal process. There is no public debate. Saudi Arabia's message is simple. If you are undocumented, you leave. This has reshaped entire migrant communities overnight. Workers who spent years building infrastructure and supporting households are forced out with minimal warning. It is immigration enforcement at full force, and it is reshaping the labor landscape across the Gulf. Number 1, United States. At number 1 is the country where immigration debate is loudest, and enforcement in 2026 is more aggressive than at any point in recent history, the United States. By 2026, immigration enforcement in the U.S. has entered a new phase. Deportations have increased sharply. Asylum standards have tightened. Temporary protections are being rolled back or allowed to expire. Interior enforcement has expanded beyond the border. What makes the U.S. different is scale. No other country on this list has as many undocumented immigrants, or removes as many when policy shifts. States are playing a central role. Some states have expanded cooperation with federal authorities. Others have introduced their own enforcement measures targeting employment, housing, and public services. Workplace raids are back. Documentation checks are increasing. Legal pathways are narrowing. At the same time, economic pressure is rising. Housing shortages, high inflation, strained public systems. Immigration has become the pressure valve, politically and socially. What's changed in 2026 is speed. Policies that once stalled in courts or Congress are now implemented through executive authority, state-level action, and regulatory changes. For millions of immigrants, the ground has shifted quickly. Protections that once felt stable are now temporary. Permits are harder to renew. Legal uncertainty has become constant. And unlike smaller countries, enforcement in the U.S. doesn't just affect individuals. It reshapes entire industries, cities, and labor markets. The United States is not just tightening immigration, it is redefining who gets to remain and who is forced out. By the end of this countdown, one truth becomes unavoidable. This is not a regional trend. This is not a political cycle. This is not coincidence. Across continents, countries are responding to the same pressures with the same tools: restriction, enforcement, and removal, housing shortages, economic anxiety, public fatigue, political survival. Immigration is no longer framed as growth, it's framed as cost. The countries on this list are not asking how to integrate more people. They're asking how to reduce numbers fast. For immigrants, this marks a turning point. Certainty has disappeared. Temporary status feels permanent, until it isn't. And policies can change overnight, regardless of how long someone has lived, worked, or contributed. For governments, this is about control. And for the world, it signals something much larger: a global shift away from openness and toward enforcement. The age of easy migration is ending, and in 2026, these 10 countries are leading that shift, not quietly, not gradually, but decisively. The consequences of this reset won't be felt only by migrants. They will reshape economies, labor markets, and societies for years to come. And this time, there is no going back to how it was before.